Welcome to Legacy Conversations, a channel where we preserve military memories and history.
Hi everyone, welcome to Legacy Conversation. I have a very special guest today. He's a dentist and he was part of the 7 men, Dr. Clint Pirow. Dr. Clint, welcome to Legacy. Dr. Clint, while I was doing my research, I came across a very interesting article about your grandfather, Oswald Pirow. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and about your grandfather.
Clint Pirow here, born in 1960, youngest of 3 boys, born in Bushbuck Ridge, small little place in Eastern Transvaal. When I was 6 years old, we were involved in a car crash and both my parents died. The 3 boys were then adopted into my mom's family, the Koos from Agut. Wonderful family, beautiful place, and we grew up there in a hell of a nice place. My story ties in with Steph's story where he started working with CSI, and he asked me to just give a bit of a input from me as a dentist, the CSI dentist. And that's basically it. Won't be a long story. It's more about the humoristic things that happened. And that's about where I'm going to be on that. School, we went to Vryheid, which was the closest school to the farm, which was 130 kilometers away. Had some good times in the hostel there. So I was in hostel from 6 years of age right through to matric. And enjoyed rugby, bit of swimming, and then in about standard 6, under 14, after rugby games, we weren't allowed to hike or take lifts out of the town. But I managed to forge my old missus's handwriting or her autograph so good that I used to fill in my own pass outs and then hitched a ride with the Pongola kids, parents, obviously, they're driving down. And they dropped me at the crossroad where the road would be. On the left, you go to Pongola, and to the right, you go to Nongoma, and our farm was about 15 kilometers away from there. And I just started walking after a game. Mostly the sugarcane tractors picked me up, and I would hitch a ride with them, all the local farmers. And the only one time I had to walk not the full, but about 10 k's to get to my cousin's place on the Mkuzi River, Parole Nell. And my parents picked me up there. School ended 78. I went to Stellenbosch to go and do dentistry. Didn't get accepted first time round, so I had to do a year of BSc and then was accepted to do dentistry. After that, Army. My grandfather was Oswald Pirow. During the 30s, I think late 20s, early 30s, he was a member of the Herzog cabinet, serving as Minister of Defense, Minister of Justice, Minister of Harbours and Transport or something. Probably the last honest politician South Africa had. As honesty runs in our genes. There was a street in Cape Town, Oswald Pirow Boulevard or something like that. The ANC decided to change it, now the Christian Barnard Avenue. So, Oswald Pirow is known lately as the strikecraft Oswald Pirow is named after him. And for reconnaissance, used the Oswald Pirow fairly frequently, and to go and do their holiday trips up the east and west coast of South Africa and of Africa. And as a sort of a member of the Pirow family, I always thought that I would get compensated a bit because the army used my grandfather's boat, and I mentioned it to Douw Steyn and Frans Fourie, and they both told me where to get off quickly, unceremoniously. But in any case, that was my grandfather's story.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for that introduction. It was very interesting. Well, tell us a little bit more about your military career. How did it happen? What stories came of everything? And I especially want to hear about the laughter in the military.
Okay, 86, I qualified at Stellenbosch. And as like all youngsters those days, we had to go and do our national service, 2 years. All the medics ended up at Potchefstroom at a base called Stinkdrift. So that set in. And before basics even began, Special Forces were there with a recruitment team. Showed a few videos, which obviously made it look so lekker. But Dries and myself, we just had a look at this and said, there's too much PT. Because the guys were doing sit-ups and push-ups and ran around there like anything. But in any case, a lot of the doctors joined and went to join 7 Medical Battalion, and they did their basics there, which was a tough basic thing. I carried on like normal, and about a week before our passing out parade, if you can call it that, I had a few passing out parades before then, I think. And Special Forces came back to Stinkdrift, and they were there when we were all allocated to the different bases that we were going to and so on. And I was already allocated to Free State Command going to Bethlehem, sitting there and getting all the info about what's going to happen. It's about a week before we cleared out. Special Forces walked in there, Lieutenant came up, went to the Colonel, did all the salutes and stuff, and then just said, "Who's Pirow?" Obviously put my hand up. He said to me, "You report to Special Forces HQ tomorrow." So that led to a bit of a fight from the Colonel, because he didn't like his dentist being taken away and this and that. But the Lieutenant just feared his gat off with him. You know? So, and the next day I had to be at Special Forces headquarters, which I managed to do. Clocked in at Sam's HQ, stayed there at my room, and within a few days, we were a bunch of guys, doctors and stuff. I can't remember who all of them. We were at Space Corp, and we were introduced to Dr. Wouter Basson, called Colonel Wouter Basson. Hell of an impressive guy, well-mannered, intelligent. And then everybody got his own job and went their own way. And I had call him my handler, a captain, let's call him Golf, which I still want to drink a beer with someday, because he painted me, I think. And he took me to where my kit was, the chair and the trommel with all my stuff in. Told me to check and see that it's right, which I did. And then he told me 24 hours standby. I've got to be ready to go anytime, anywhere, and not to wear any uniform. I wasn't allowed to wear any uniform, and just be civvy, which suited me quite well, as I've been only six months out of varsity, you know. That's how now I was all fired up to go and work, and hung around the place a bit, Pretoria, and decided to go and work at some government clinics to keep me busy. And then the big call came. Colonel Basson's secretary always organized me to get up to the corp, and then I'd get my job there. So I went up and got there, and the captain had me there, and he said, "Listen, you're going away for 1 day, 10 patients, all toothaches." So I didn't take my full kit, which weighed 118 kilos, I think. So for 10 guys, just a few extraction forceps and local and stuff like that. Packed my little rugsakkie, and asked him, "What type of clothes must I wear? Where am I going?" He said, "No, smart casual," which was like, now, I thought I was going to Sun City to go and do Mongol's teeth or something. And I managed to get a pink shirt and a silky blue pants, and I had leather-soled shoes, and I had my little rugsakkie with me. And the next morning I was up at Wonderboom Airport, waiting to hit the road now somewhere to Sun City, I thought. Sat there for a few hours, and a King Air came in, and 3 moth-eaten figures got off there. you could see they'd been hard at work the previous night somewhere. And obviously they looked at me, this guy, because I looked like something that had escaped from a Saturday Night Fever movie. Like really. In any case, we got in the King Air and started flying, and I just checked the shadow of the plane, and I saw we were flying north somewhere, not west to Sun City. And we flew and flew and flew, and eventually we landed on a little dirt strip where I didn't know where I was, and out of the bush there came a few creatures, and unimogs, no shirts, beards, like ugliest creatures God could make, he put in the Caprivi there. And I'm standing here with my smart outfit, trying to help them load the stuff, offload the King Air onto the unimogs and stuff, and making a total asshole of myself. All right, I was banned from sitting in the front of the unimog because I looked like I don't want to say that because woke was the right thing nowadays. So in any case, I'm on the back of the unimog, and there's this one operator with an absolutely deadpan face standing next to me. He's absolutely expressionless, and I'm trying to talk to him and trying to make small converse, and he's like just looking at me. So okay, just shut up and go, I just went in. Got to the base which we call the island later on. Later on heard that it was the island. And it was time for a few beers and so on. And one of the big knobs there then told me that the new doctor drinks on the old doctor's account, like an honesty bar. So I made sure that the doctor went home without any danger pay that night. And so after sort of a short while, I asked Steph, I sort of cottoned up to him and asked him, listen, please, have you got some clothes for me? Because this stuff is I'm standing out a bit here. And he gave me a t-shirt and like a PT short. So I was sort of into the swing of things. Next morning, I don't know what time, we had like a little bridge over the river there. I took my backpack with the forceps and stuff and cruised over there, saw the patients and started working. And while working, I picked up that they weren't really happy about something. I don't know what, but they weren't happy and they were already spoiling for a fight. And I did the work and went back to the base, across the river, and said to Steph, I said, listen, I picked up that these guys they weren't happy. And they were ready to cause havoc, which led to a bit of a flurry of activity. And the next moment, there were guns on containers and stuff. And me sitting there still not, everybody was working on pseudonyms. They had no uniform, no rank, no nothing. So I didn't know what the hell was going on. And now these guns were out. And so, yeah, a bit worried. And then the deadpan faced operator started walking around with a .22 silenced pistol, which didn't help me sleep well in any case. I just kept him in front of me. Not that it would have mattered much, but in any case, yeah. Then there was a guy, I'll describe him now as call him the commander. A figure that you can put in an Anglo-Boer War photo. Big beard, barrel-chested, sort of booming voice type of guy, which eventually turned out to be a big pal of mine. Later on, we became buds. And he just took me aside and said, listen, if you picked up here what was going on, or whatever, if you compromise this operation, I will personally kill you. Well, that helped me sleep really well, so that trip then didn't turn into a one-night trip or one-day trip. It turned into a few weeks trip. And these buggers had always they set you up for something, and they had this thing where they always used to say nix, 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 and the last nix must go and put the kettle on or make the fire or go and light the donkey or whatever. And the first Sunday that I was there in the base, there was a nix, 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 and now I was the last one. They set me up for that. to go and buy the newspapers, the Sunday newspaper, which was called the Rapport, the Afrikaans Rapport. They put me in a Land Cruiser, and I even got a Tokarev to take with me. I'd never seen one before, but it was lying there in the van, and told me to drive back to where what was known as the Golden Highway. There was a dirt road in those days. And I got there and I parked off. It must have been like 10 o'clock in the morning or so. And I sat there and I waited for this van to come past so that I could buy the newspapers. And I sat there, and about sort of close to about 3 o'clock the afternoon, there was I think it was a Ford F-250 or something, with probably a bunch of policemen on, came flying past there in a cloud of dust, no shirts, no nothing. And I got out and sort of ran towards the car, and they just disappeared in a cloud of dust and waved at me. And sat back and got back in the Land Cruiser and sat there, watched the elephants. And then there was a guy, Marius Heyman, and his wife Vicky. She was highly pregnant in those days, at that stage. Came in with a Land Cruiser from the Katima side, and they stopped and they were, what's wrong? And I said, is something wrong? I said, no, nothing's wrong. I'm just sitting here waiting for the newspaper van. But you must remember, I didn't know where I was. I didn't know Caprivi, no nothing. I didn't know anything about it. And they just hosed themselves. And Vicky said, listen, you must get those guys back. They always do it to the new guys. So, I mean, how the hell do you get somebody back if you don't know where or what is? And fortunately, during the week, these guys have been talking in the base that they were waiting for 100,000 AK rounds to come in for training and this and that. And as I drove back, I thought maybe I can make something of this, because I just heard something. And they were talking about Immelman, which was the landing strip. I didn't know it was what it was or where it was. So I drove back and faced the music in the camp. Everybody wanted the report, and this one wanted the sport report, and that one says, did you get them? I said, no, I didn't get the report, but I ran into the commander there at Saint Michel, and he said something about 100,000 AK rounds that been dropped at Immelman. And this got the four guys, the main instigators that caught me, decided they had to go and get the ammo. So they got into two open mogs and started driving back. And I was a bit apprehensive, because you had the guy walking around with a bloody .22 silencer, and the other guys, I didn't even know who they were. So I said to Steph, listen, I'm voering them a poop here. And Steph just said, laat hulle gaan. So all right, so Steph and myself started fire, and we had a few beers and so on. About an hour and a half, 2 hours later, they come back full of dust and cold and so on. And so that's when the penny dropped, and I think I became part of the family. As Steph said in one of his episodes, it was a family. And then I became in the process, I became a bit of a gopher. Go for this, go for that, type of thing, and going to fetch videos at Saint Michel or whatever. And on my way there one day, I was in a Unimog to go and get or do something. I think Steph said, listen, bring us some meat, we low on meat. And I went there, and there was a lieutenant. They were playing volleyball in front of Saint Michel's base there. And he gave me the keys to the store. And I think it was the wrong thing to do at that stage, because I think I wanted to prove myself. So I went into the freezer there, and I took 75 kilograms of T-bone steaks and a few, not leg of lambs, a shoulder of the lamb, and just hightailed it out of there. I was never allowed near that storeroom again, but we had good meat for a long time. Proper. Proper. Then funny stories at the island, was we had this beautiful loo with a view. It had just the 3 walls of reeds with a thatch roof on and 2 AK-47 launcher pads on 2 long drops next to each other. And we had the ammo, it had to be there, like ammo kits with a few scopes, the old scope magazines that you could page through. So you go in there, it was beautiful. I mean, you look over the Kwando River and you can just take a dump to your heart's content. One day, the commander that I'm talking about it's just after brunch time. We normally had brunch at about 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock-ish there. And he went to the loo, and he was just in there. We were still standing there, everybody dispersing to their own workplaces. And so when we had just heard this death bellow out of the toilet, and the next moment this guy had a big beard and so on, and he was I think he was a bit overweight at that stage as well. Now he came dancing with his pants around his ankles out of this toilet, trying to get his pants up, and everybody shouted. Some guys had guns and they thought something had happened. And he was bellowing on, and somebody said, "What's it?" And he just said, "Lakafan!" So a monitor lizard had been in the toilet when he came in there, and this thing just ran across his legs or his feet or something, which triggered him into this fright. And when he got there, now he's pulling up his pants and tying his belt and so. So, and you must excuse this now. You can close your eyes, ears, and eyes if you're sensitive. So I said to him, "Commander, go back and finish the job." And he said to me, "Maar fuck man, ek het my kat weggeskryf." So that was one of the good things and the funny things about it. And the commander was also caught out at Kasinga, when I worked there with Steph at one stage. I pulled teeth out my chair up there, the whole thing, the full kit, and he had the commander needed a filling, so we did a filling for him, but he was as nervous as anything, because I think he knew everybody wanted him to pay back, And so I said to Steph beforehand, my little compressor was standing, I said, "If you pull this emergency release valve, it makes a hell of a noise, And I said to him, when you guys walk past here after I've done the filling, I'm going to pull this release valve and I'm going to shout, And so they were walking past, I think Pete was also there, but they were walking past this little compressor, and I shouted, "Wah!" And I pulled the release valve, which made a huge noise. And that commander, it's the first time I've seen a stocky guy run away from his own shadow. His shadow caught up with him a few minutes later, I think. And he hit Steph and he said, "Ja, jy het lekker geskrik, né?" And I said, you could never corner the guy. Yeah. And okay, so another funny thing that happened at Saint Michel was, I think I had something wrong to eat or something, because I had to go and sleep early that night. Slept under a bed or somewhere, and late night, I said, these guys were making a noise outside, and "Where's the doc? And where's the doc?" Eventually they hauled me out from under the bed where I was lying or something, and I thought, now this is the chance for a national service dentist to win the war, because these guys were sounding desperate. I'm all parat out there. Meantime, one of the operators had a sort of a projectile vomiting into the bush there. And what he vomited into the bush was his dentures. And they were getting me to come and look for his dentures. Which then, we got them and we went back to the island, and it was all done and dusted. Then Colonel Breitenbach, I met him obviously right in the beginning, the first trip. A guy that, he had an aura around him. I mean, he'd look through you and just, know everything. And I nearly confessed to him about things that I did at school, which I never got caught for, It's like I had to tie my lips not to confess about these things. But a hell of a nice guy, fair guy, strict as anything, and respect. And if you compare him to politicians, where they politicians build their own little pyramid under them, and they sit at the top and do their social engineering and their gold stealing and their oil deals like all the old National Party guys probably did. And the moment the pawpaw hit the fan, that pyramid top would turn around, and there'd be commissions of inquiry and fingers pointing down. They never got caught. Now, Colonel Breitenbach wasn't like, he was his own pyramid. And he would blixen me with that pyramid if he felt like it as well. I mean, that was just him. Then I think something I'd like to talk about is we amongst our group, we had a saying that somebody was an adder, like an adder for them, but not as in a snake, as a respect. You know, you'd say Eben Etzebeth is an oyster. Now, Eben, maybe he could have been an adder in our unit. You know, it was a matter of respect. Honor. It was an honor to be called an adder. And, I mean, most of those guys, but there was a Kloppies, that's Jaap Kloppers. He was one of the others. He was there on one of the trips that I was there. A hell of a jovial guy, and just always fun and naughty, and sneezed when he got wine and gin in, and so just a hell of a character. And I made the mistake. He wanted me to show him just a bit about extractions and stuff like that. And so I taught Kloppies a few tricks in injecting and taking teeth out and filling teeth, which boomeranged on me, because the next day he'd gone to the parade ground and pick up all the guys. He had them, and he did little checkups, and he sent them all over there so he could do the fillings and stuff. So he made me work way harder than what I was supposed to work. Then also one of the trips there was Erre, Renier van der Merwe. One of the same, yeah.
Passed away.
Yeah, passed away, unfortunately. Kloppies also, sorry. But Erre was one of those characters. He could sit and drink rum and coke till 3 o'clock in the morning, and then go and run a marathon at 6 and do a good time. You know, he was just one of those guys. And he organized me to go and run with him in the mornings. I had to go and jog. I don't know why I let myself in for that, but we'd go for runs and have nice chats, and he'd show me, you know, you got to breathe with your stomach, not with your lungs, and I don't know what. And then there was like a imposter adder, which I like to call, but I only met him in Pretoria. I don't think he had anything to do with where we worked there. And he had very close set eyes. He had his eyes were quite close together. And I don't know who gave him the name Land Rover Oogies, because he looked like a Series 1 Land Rover. But somebody gave him that name and it stuck. And then we get to Colonel Henny Blau, which also I just met somewhere along the line. And I mean, this guy, he's just such a character that he must count as the anaconda of others. He was just, there's nobody to touch him. He was other. Yeah, he was an anaconda. And but a hell of a nice guy. And his management style was such that you wanted to work for him.
Yeah.
There was no two ways about it. Everybody just wanted to work for him. Even and we had a restaurant in Pretoria on Vermeulen Street where we frequented and got together every now and again. If the guys came down from the bush, and I organized transport for them, and you meet up with him there and Boss Henny's there. He always used to eat a sole, and he'd get a sole the size of a bloody blue whale steak. You order the same. You get two like these things that you get at the Caltex garage, these marshmallow fishes. You get two sizes, like two small things like that. He even had the cook in his pocket. He was like, he was just a magic, person. Then my last trip, just before I came back, which must have been November 87, because that was when the Helderberg fell. And Bob's birthday was on the 26th, so it was 26, 27, 28 when I had to come out. There was one of the operators who got one blue and one green eye, which fell headfirst into the opdrifsels, the driftwood, the one night. And it wasn't because of medicine that I prescribed. He took his own bloody medicine and he fell into the headfirst in there. And he came out and he had some stick or something in his chest here. And he asked me if I could leave him some local anesthetic and a bit of needles and sutures, which I gladly did, because he didn't want me to touch it. So he took it out himself and he gave me the stuff later on. And neatly sutured him up. When I saw him in Pretoria, he gave it back to me. So that was something that just to how they don't, they're on their own. They sustain themselves. They're self-sufficient. They can do these things. Era had me at one stage. I think his jobs had been. He wasn't that busy, so he took me along, and we went. He just crossed the river and so on. And he had to go and do something where Major Willem Rutte was staying in a tent there. And we got there, they had something to do. The whole tent was packed with landmines, like probably 50, 60 in the tent. And Major Rutte was sitting there with a little detonator, which he wanted to arm or something, and he didn't know what he tried. He said to Ara, listen, do you know how to learn? Obviously, he didn't ask me. And Ara had a look at this and he said, no, I don't know. He said, and Ara said to me, let's go. Something's going to happen here. And we were 15 meters away. Bah! And just to show how spatially aware the operators were, I heard the shot coming from that side. I thought it was a 9mm somewhere in the bush there. And Ara just spun around and ran to the tent. He said it's happened, and it was behind us there. So we got Major Rutte into the Unimog, blood all over the door and so on, and he chased off with him to the medical facility, a little container we had there, and I walked back. It was probably a 10-minute walk or something like that. Got there and he was already strapped up. There was a tall doctor that I knew from Stellenbosch that was doing the job there, and he had him strapped up and dripped and everything, and it was just working like this, like clockwork. And it wasn't 10 minutes later when Steph stuck his head through into the container. He said, hey, Major, welcome to the club, So two off, and two lefties, I think now, like that. But just the efficiency of how he was treated, it was just like amazing. And then I had my dental chair, just to show another thing how special forces got sort of special treatment. My chair had a bit of, was bent and had a crack in it, and I don't know, it didn't look too good. And while at Kasinga, while I was working there, Colonel Breitenbach walked past and he said he doesn't want scrap metal like this in his bases. This looks like it doesn't look good. He said, get a new one. So he said, jy gaan na Wouter Basson toe and you get a new one. So, all right. There's this dentist, national serviceman looking like a hooligan. Go to Wouter Basson, to Colonel Basson. I said, listen, without papers. Colonel Breitenbach said, I need a new chair. He scribbled something on a paper. He said, you go to Colonel J.T. Barnard, Chief of Dentistry in the Army. Got there and Colonel Barnard didn't know who the hell I was. He looked at me and this and that until I told him and where I was working. So he was like, whoa, okay, form in, off to the stores, new chair. The chairs in those days were like the price of a small BMW. So the storeman wasn't too keen to give it to me because I looked like a hooligan, and I just had to take it. And got it, and it was done within a day. It was done. So then I did let me just go back. On the last trip back, that was when the Helderberg fell. So they took the Flossie off that trip because they were going to look for survivors, wreckage or whatever. And we didn't know. We knew the plane had fallen. Somebody had picked it up on the radio. So that early, that next morning, I went up to St. Michel, got on the Doppies Land Rover, off we go to Mapacha. And I got it to Mapacha and I ran into Commandant Bert Saxe there. He was around there. And he said to me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm flying back. This is my last trip. I'm going to Clara soon." He said, "No, you're not flying back. The Helderberg had moved into the sea and they'd taken the Flossie." So I can imagine the sort of the laughter I would run into if I had to come back to the base again, you know, and Mapacha, Kozach, and on the island, because I'd been so windgat about now I'm leaving and this and that. And he said to me, "Just hang on, but there is a plane coming in later on. Maybe there's a place for you. If there's no funnies on them, then you can hitch a ride." And about 3 o'clock that afternoon, sitting there all day, the Learjet came in. So I got a trip from the Learjet back to South Africa. And then when I got into the plane, there was a pilot, old Pete, a stocky guy with a heavy moustache. Yeah. He was the pilot. I can't remember his surname.
Pete Stork, I think. Yeah.
He said to me, as I got, "Hey, how's the doc?" Because he'd flown the Dakotas that we were on as well. I knew him. He said, there's a few Amstel's few in the fridge, a little bar fridge like this there in the Learjet. And I said to him, "Pete, listen, please, man, this is the only time in my life I'm going to fly in a Learjet. Just pull it up a bit." You know? Pete said, "No, right." And the Learjet, you sit facing each other. You don't. So I was facing back, and Commandant Saxe was facing towards the front, and he had his laptop open, his briefcase open, and fiddling with some papers, and I'm now looking over my shoulder, you know, to try and see the runway. And how Pete plastered that thing down the runway, and as he got to the end, we went up. That the G-force just pulled me down like this, and I looked up, and Bert Saxe sat there, his jowls was hanging down here. And it was, I think it was an hour and 15 minutes we had Wonderboom. I couldn't even get 2 beers in. So yeah, I went in with I flew the King Air, the Dakota, the Flossies, and I came back with a Learjet. I made some progress. I did some internal and external jobs, dental jobs, where the external jobs, I had to use my passport to all SAD countries where I had to go and so. And on most of those trips, I had to take money for the trade representatives, anything from 180 to 380,000 rand. Whether they were really trade representatives, I don't know, because CSI is privy to those information. So, and then internal job one that stood out is in Pretoria, where I had to go and see 2 patients, which I was just told they were working for South Africa, and they didn't know it. And somebody had a toothache and had to be sorted out. It was somewhere in Pretoria, Sunnyside or somewhere, I don't know. And I went there with my kit on the back of the bakkie, and there's this old lady standing there. No, it looked like an old lady standing there in a gown and curlers in the hair type of thing. And this is the address that I had, and I sort of stopped there and looked, and she just opened the gate, drove in. There's a garage, and opened the garage, electronic garage went open, and I drove into the garage. The door went closed behind me, and the door opened in the front, and I drove right through to another house on the other side, where I set up my kit and waited and did the 2 patients and retreated the same way, dropped the kit off at the corp again. And that was my trip. And then the last time I saw Steph, by then I'd already been in a private practice for a year or 2. I don't know how we got together, but I was visiting the in-laws in the Cape, and Steph phoned me, and I had a little rental car or something, and we picked it up. And he was busy with his funny CSI things, and we had the car. There was another guy in the car as well. Andries. He was in the car as well. So Steph and Andries had to meet somebody at the Cape Point Nature Reserve. We went there. They didn't meet. The meeting didn't pan out. So now we're driving back. and we bought some pies. And we were hungry. Windows open, arm out like a South African, out the door, and my pie was a bit too warm, so I left it in the dash. And Steph began nibbling on his pie. Now the cars were stopping, and there's a baboon here next to where we stopped. Now, this thing was built like a Lucette prop, and it had shifty eyes like a second-hand cars dealer. Yes, as that thing did. And he didn't take notice till I looked away. The next moment, I just felt his little hands on my arm, and he's in the car. And Steph's sitting in the passenger side with his pie in the short hand. And that Bobo took it out of his hand like this, filed it, and he took my pie out of the dashboard and out. And that was it. That was the last thing I saw Stefan. From then on, our lives just ran its own way. And that was it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pirow. That was very interesting stories. And I mean, I think half of the people are going to laugh and their stomachs is going to pain for the rest of the night. Again, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe.
Been a pleasure. I had fun, and I hope somebody enjoyed the trip with me.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell to receive notifications.